A Kiwi used to cover politics in your homeland. I look at this, Winston Peters, Jacinda Mania. This could be, maybe Netflix could do a series on what happened, and you could get some really interesting people playing all those characters. But, what does this mean what are we going to get from a Labour government?
Oh, Kathleen, Winston Peters, yes, you could make a mini-series out of this man. We'll get to that in a moment. But as to what you can expect, immigration will be the key thing. Winston Peters has always campaigned on cutting that back. Last year, 72,000 arrivals into New Zealand. Jacinda Ardern, the Prime Minister-designate, likely to see that cut to between 20 and 30,000, she says. Foreign ownership will see some changes there, particularly on land and property. Changes to the Reserve Bank Act, as Adam was mentioning, could have a dual mandate now. Targeting employment as well as just inflation, and a plan to build a lot of low-cost houses to ease the crisis. So we had a situation where Winston Peters, who only got 7% of the vote, was in a position to crown either National or Labour as the winning party. Eventually he found he had more in common with Labour. He started off his speech really being downbeat on the prospects for the New Zealand economy going forward. Let's have a listen to what he had to say.
Far too many New Zealanders have come to view today's capitalism not as their friend, but as their foe. And they are not all wrong. That is why we believe that capitalism must regain its human face.
Well, there are a few other telling things about that press conference that were unspoken. First of all, it was interesting that Winston Peters called a press conference to tell the country and the leaders of both parties at the same time. Neither of them had any idea which way he was going to go. And it was also interesting that even though he only won 7% of the vote, it was him that made the announcement and not the larger party in government. So this is classic Winston Peters theatre.
Yeah, and you said we could make a Netflix series out of this. This has happened a couple of times before for Winston Peters. It hasn't ended well, has it? No,
1996 was the first time, and I spent a lot of time covering those coalition negotiations within the National Party. Now, that failed to go full term, ended in defeat for the government. New Zealand First almost wiped out. 2008, same position. This time he did a confidence and supply agreement with Helen Clark's Labour government. Now that ended with a police investigation into New Zealand First campaign donations. Now that ended in defeat for the government, and that time New Zealand First was wiped out. So what do we have this time? Well, they also need backing from the Greens outside of Cabinet. Ardern's only been leader 2 months before this election was held. And the Deputy Prime Minister, as he's likely to be, Winston Peters, he was in Parliament before Jacinda Ardern was even born. And he's one of the country's most cunning politicians. So it's going to be a very interesting 3 years, to say the least, Kathleen.